one thing I've always wanted to kind of do is do something like an action movie where like you save the planet and everything, everyone is happy and everything comes together and it's all nice. This is a dumber and more annoying version of that. What do you mean by that, you may say? Well, I'm going to be saving the world today, and the thing that I mean with that is that I'm going to be saving the idea and fact of what the planet is, a globe. Now, I know what anybody who's a flat earther, space denier, whatever you are, I don't really care, but, well, now you know what I do care. You know I do. I'm making a video off of it. Look, see my eyes right there? Yeah, that's it. They're coming off. Woo, there they go. Here's the thing. I have been debating with several of these people in different YouTube channels, and I honestly, you know what? I have respect for them. They're fine. I don't have a problem with them personally. I have a problem with the fact that they think the Earth is flat and that space doesn't exist. The entire concept of conspiracy theories is that they think they're correct. So anyone who believes in a conspiracy theory won't listen to anybody else who has something against the theory because they think that they know that they're right. I've been having an argument today, literally just today, that has spanned over the period of like, I don't know, 9-10 hours, and it's maybe 20 different responses. It's not huge, but it's there. And for some reason, they asked me to post something, and you know what? I did. I gave them exactly what they wanted. They asked for a link of of something going up and showing a barometric reading of air pressure that goes from, ground level up, and then the air pressure decreases, it gets closer to space until it gets to a vacuum. Now, I provided them with footage that is basically exactly the same as that. It's just not as high up as space, because here's the thing, weather balloons, a little, like, tidbit of information there, they cannot get that high. Why is that, you may think? It's because of air pressure. That's what it does. Why do you think they pop as they get further up? You're adding an area of high pressure in the balloon into an area of low pressure as it goes up. It goes up, it expands, and then it gets bigger, it explodes. That is how a balloon works. That is why balloons pop as they get high up. Why do you think they can't go up to space? It's because of air pressure, and that's the thing you're trying to disprove. Needless to say, I provided around 2.5 hour non-edited footage, by the way. It just goes straight up, of the thing going pretty much, I think, it was like 20 miles up last I recall, and it went up very far, and it went up all the way up there, and then you could see the readings as it went up. You could see the altitude. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could see the curvature of the Earth too. I don't really remember. Either way, I know the Earth is not flat. But I do not like to be condescending in these videos, or any of the comments that I've left in those other videos. The thing is, I am only rude or condescending back to someone else if they are rude to me, and boy, have they been rude back to me. So I'm going to present to you some of the points that they have laid out for me, and then I'm going to completely shatter them with every single possible thing that I can do, because I don't know why someone is still debating the fact of the shape of the Earth and the existence of space. It has been known for thousands of years, and yet there are still people living in the Dark Ages, and it makes no sense to me. Firstly, I'm going to address a claim of which I've heard several times before, but mainly by the person today. It is that the space is a vacuum near a pressurized gas system, which is the Earth's atmosphere, and I can show that. It's so super easy. Here's the thing. I have an obsidian ball here, and that is what I'm going to be using to impersonate the Earth, because I'm not going to be making like a clay Earth or something. I don't want to spend time on that. I just happen to have a ball here that I got from some weird convention a while back. Anyway, we have this here, right? And it is a ball. That is what the Earth is, but, people don't think that, of course, but that's fine. Not really, but imagine it's fine. What I'm going to be showing is exactly why the atmosphere is not at all a closed system near a vacuum, as they keep saying it is. You can call the Earth a closed system in layman's terms. It is not, but you can refer to it as a closed system. But here is the main point that they're trying to prove. They think that the atmosphere is a continuous area of gas pressure, and then it just cuts off to a point where there's a vacuum. That is not the case, which is something that I think a lot of these people don't understand. What this does is the Earth has gravity, yes, and I know this, and everyone else knows this because it's been proven to exist. There are machines that can detect it, whether people think there are or not. They are giant, huge apparatuses that are in, I don't know, I think there's one either in Antarctica or some open vast area. It is out there, and there's a couple of them, and they detect gravitational waves. Why do you think gravity isn't real if they've literally found the waves that produce it? I'm gonna stop rambling now so I can actually get on to proving something here, because that's what I don't like. I don't like how when every single comment someone has just been rambling. They don't give me proof. I try to give them proof. They don't show me anything. And if they do, it's always something wrong, because I've seen someone try to disprove the existence of the International Space Station with this one clip of a guy disappearing around a corner. And, as you can obviously think, that isn't possible. It's not, and do you know what it's called? Video editing. Watch this! You see that? That's the exact thing that happened in the video, and get this, I did this on my phone. Movie magic, baby. Anyway, the entire point that I'm trying to make, at least with this point in general, is that the Earth has gravity, which attracts the gas to it. There is gas on the Earth I'm not going to explain why the gas is there. I'm not going to delve into that. I'm going to explain how the atmosphere works. There is gas on the Earth, yes. The Earth is currently in space. Right now, it's orbiting, it's moving, it's going around. The reason that gas does not just shoot into space if it's a vacuum is because it's already in space. It is a very easy concept to think, and it is constantly misconstrued and confused. That makes it just overall completely illegible to anyone who thinks that the atmosphere is not a... Oh my gosh, you get my idea, right? The way that the atmosphere works is you have a lot of gas in one area, and what happens is you have a lot of it that's mainly attracted down to the bottom. Actually, I would think around 90% of it is within the first 10 kilometers of the Earth, and then it gradually gets thinner and thinner as you go up because both gravity is less and you have space above it. So the higher you get, the less stuff you have to attract. And I already know what someone's going to respond to this. If the gravity gets less, how is the moon in orbit? Well, here is something that I don't think anybody actually thinks of when they say that. Bigger objects attract each other more. That's how gravity works. That's how planets stay in orbit around the sun, because they are big and the sun is real big. And even though they're extremely far apart, they can attract each other because of their size. If they were smaller, no, not really. They would not have that much of an effect. But because of the sheer size of the sun, its giant mass, I can't really describe how big the sun is, but, you know, it's big enough to actually prove the point here, isn't it? Back to the whole atmosphere thing, it gets thinner. That is how air pressure works. It goes from a very high pressure area, and it gradually gets lower and lower up until it gets to that pretty much no pressure area in space. That is how it works. It gets gradually thinner and less pressurized. That is what the system is. It's not a closed system, as I keep hearing. There is no definitive point in which space starts. You could say the Kármán line is that, but that's not definitive, and there's still gas up there. It is a point in which most of the stuff tapers off, and that is what everyone is being confused with, because that is actually how it works, but for some reason no one seems to understand that. You have the Earth, then you have atmosphere on the Earth, and then you have space right about out here. Imagine that's how high up it is. It's definitely not if it starts 100 kilometers up, just to say it does. It would actually probably be like right here. You couldn't see it. It's like the skin of an apple. But just picture it, okay? Space is further out here, right? And then as you have thick atmosphere here, it gets thinner and thinner, then it's gone. Another argument that I was told about in one comment section was that a rocket called the Go Fast rocket launched in 2014 that went around over 3,000 miles per hour, up 70 miles. Quite an incredible thing, I'll say that. They said that it hit the dome of the flat Earth, which that just is not physically possible, and I'm sorry to say it. Do you have any actual idea how strong you would need to create a dome to support that much, I don't know what it's made of, and if it was made of something really light, it would still be so heavy that it would go up and it would completely crush itself under its own weight. Not to mention, it would most likely crush itself due to gravity, which is one reason the flat Earth can't exist, by the way. Once an object gets big enough with enough mass, it eventually crumples itself into a ball because gravity attracts all of the stuff into the smallest physical area possible. That is what gravity does. That is why stars are round. That is why planets are round. Asteroids are round. That is how it all works. A sphere takes up the least amount of area in a given volume. You can't have a cuboid planet, nor can you have a flat planet, because that's just a cross-section of a circle. It will, like a piece of paper. Imagine I cut a piece of paper into a circle. It would crumble up into a ball. If it had the gravity of Earth anyway, which, you know, it doesn't. The point of the matter is, you cannot have a flat Earth dome, but suppose you did. Here is one thing that I have been very confused about that no flat earther or space denier has actually shown to me. where is the dome? They're so certain that there's a dome up there and that they can find it, but there's literally nothing to show that at all. Then they say that it happens in Antarctica, that it's an ice wall. The problem is you can go to Antarctica. One thing in the flat earth theory is that I say theory loosely because the theory requires evidence. In the flat earth idea, there is the thought that there is an Antarctic treaty, which that does exist. However, it is not in any way something that prohibits civilians from visiting Antarctica. Scientific research, tourism, everything you could pretty much want to go there, you can do. That is what I've been confused about, because you can go there. My grandparents have been there. One guy even traversed the entire continent. Point of the matter is, if there is a dome that is in the ice wall on the outer edge of Antarctica, you would know that it's there. And before I start hearing stuff about, oh, but the flat earth, you know, there's land outside the ice wall, frankly, I don't care anymore. Reason I say that is we would have found that land by now, and don't you even try to tell me that the government hides it. Because if they did, it would be immediately, the cover would be blown. It wouldn't last that long. There's literally a mathematical equation to prove that something over a period of time of conspiracy, at least one person would say something, and it would just completely invalidate the whole thing. That person may be considered a conspiracy theorist, but the more people that say it's wrong, the more people believe it. That's why flat earth is still around. One guy said it, someone didn't believe him. A couple other guys said it, oh gosh, now you're in for a rude awakening, the earth is flat. I know I sound a bit sarcastic and angry, and frankly I am, but I don't like to sound mean. That is one thing I try not to do in the comments, because as far as I've seen, every other person has been really rude to me, and I honestly I feel kind of bad being rude to them. But then again, with the fact that they keep thinking they're right, and they tell me that I'm stupid and that I'm wrong, I don't really have any remorse anymore. So here's the thing that I'm going to do to completely shatter this entire notion that space isn't real. And that is the simple thing of Voyager Station. Voyager Station is a very, very expensive project that is being developed by certain companies for space tourism, which is something that will be very popular in the future, whether you think that is true or not. I mean, eventually someone is going to have a hotel up there that you can go up and visit, and then you're going to feel quite silly. And I know that's what a lot of the conspiracy theorists say, how oh, you're going to think that later, huh? No, but that's the thing. In this case, I'm right. Voyager Station is meant to be a space hotel, which will have around, I think it was something like 20 cabins, I don't recall, but I know that it's going to be expensive and that it's going to be big. One of the biggest things that is in orbit currently, and that is something that I think will be very cool to see, because how exactly are you going to fake that? If you're a civilian, albeit a rich one, you could go up there and you could pretty much see for yourself exactly what the planet is, because you can't fake altitude. If you bring an altimeter with you, you can find how high up you are. And what are you gonna do then? Are you just gonna say you're floating on a balloon, what, several hundred miles up in the air with zero gravity? Speaking of which, in case anyone's wondering how that works, if you go straight up in a rocket, you're still going to feel gravity. In fact, you would actually feel gravity on the space station if it were still. But get this, the space station is not still. In fact, it is orbiting around the Earth at an incredible speed, over a couple miles per second. And that is kind of how an orbit works. You are constantly falling around an object. It's essentially where if you take a ball like this and then you drop something straight down, it lands over there. But if you throw it while dropping it, it'll go slightly further and then it'll also drop down to the ground. The thought is, if you go high enough and you move it sideways fast enough, you can figuratively get an object to fall around an object for as long as you want. That is the very basics of orbits, and that is something I think no space denier even tries to think about. But that just makes me think, I already know that immediately, as soon as I send this video into the comment section of another video, they're gonna completely berate it and say that I am wrong. So I'm going to prove for one final time that the Earth is not flat and that space is a place that people have been to. And honestly, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that I'm gonna have to completely shatter this model for people. I know. Here's the thing. I don't care if you think the Earth is flat or if you don't think space is real. What I don't like is when you spread that information as truth, because it is not. I love if a community is nice and accepting and is kind to people, but when you have a community like that, it's pretty toxic to anybody else who actually tries to show what is the actual planet. I don't know why people don't know what the planet is. Now, one thing that I am actually, I argue this in the comment section of another video, and of course the guy did not listen to a word that I said, and he just dismissed it as, oh, that's not what I said, you're lying to me. But, I think I'll bring up the point here. For any space denier and any person who thinks the Earth is flat, obviously the sun isn't a star. They don't think stars can exist, even though you can calculate, the internal temperatures of stars, or you can pretty much find what they're made of with light. They don't think that's true. But here's something very simple that I think can basically shatter the entire idea. What the hell is powering that thing? Really, I'm curious. What on earth is powering the supposed sun then? Because one thing I did in that comment section was I actually calculated it out myself based on sunlight that reaches the Earth, which is around, give or take every day, 170,000 terawatts of energy. Why is that figure important, you may ask? Well, it's because of the fact that, on average, the Earth only uses, and by that I mean the actual amount of people on the Earth, only uses 17 terawatts of power each day from all available power sources. There is nothing on Earth shy of a literal fusion bomb that could power something of such magnitude. You can't make something that powerful and have it as a light up in the sky, which they think is only a couple miles across and maybe a couple miles up in the sky. I don't know how high they think it is, because it's wrong. I don't need to know. I may get a response of, that doesn't disprove space. No, it disproves your entire idea of the sun being a light source that is not a star, because you can't make something that powerful with anything on Earth. Even with literal fusion reactors. I know I said fusion bomb before. That was just a figure of speech. But here is something realistic for you. The fusion reactor could create the most energy out of any other kind of reactor in the entire world if it becomes operational, and even then, I don't think you could even compare to what that amount of power is. Another little tidbit of information here was another thing with the moon landings, where I keep hearing, oh no, they're fake and that CGI is the thing that created all of that. But the thing that I'm kind of, think is a bit funny is that you couldn't actually physically create that footage back in 1969 because it would not have been physically possible for the people back then to do that. And you'd think, oh no, they had perfect CGI back then. You know what they didn't have? They didn't have perfect lighting. Oh yes, that's right. The only way for someone to replicate the light on the moon on the Earth is with thousands and thousands of high-powered lasers that would have cost more than the entire moon mission combined over maybe, I don't know, multiplied over 10 times, maybe 100. The way the sun's light hits the moon is in a way that we can just not replicate on Earth, at least not with stuff back then. Not in any way, shape, or form. Instead of buying those lasers, it would have been actually more cost-effective to go to the moon. Which, I mean, that's the thing, because we kinda did, like, over 10 times. Well, around 6 times with people and a couple other times with probes and such, but you get the idea, right? We've been to the moon, and honestly, I don't know why anyone thinks we haven't. One argument to tie to that is I keep hearing, oh, we had the technology back then, but we don't have it now. That was the F1 engines on the Saturn V rocket. And the reason that we don't have those anymore is because all the people that made them are dead. Either dead or retired, and that is one thing that I think anyone, they kind of neglect. They were all handmade back then. Thousands upon thousands of individual parts put together to create these engines, which, here's the thing with that. Imagine you have a very old gun. The reason that you could buy a gun back then was because people would make them. And by back then, I mean a very long time ago, before modern, manufacturing things were an actual thing. The reason that you could buy a gun is because there were people that built them themselves. And that was what happened with the F1 engines. How exactly does this tie in with them not being here anymore? It's the fact that back when they built them, they were all individually handmade piece by piece, which means each piece was made individually for that engine. So no piece was the same, nor was any engine the exact same. They all function pretty much exactly the same. However, they all had their own little bits and bobs that were extremely precise and were unique to that engine. So you can't recreate something to that specification when all the people who made them are gone. Not to mention they didn't exactly have notes on the subject, they had rough blueprints that they went off of. The blueprints are still around today, but you can't use that to make a rough guide of the engine. That is why people are making new ones that only require, I don't know, less than 10 parts now. 10 big parts instead of 5,000. In fact, NASA's even creating the SLS, which is planning on going past the moon, and then you have Starship, which is planning on going all the way to Mars. Now, I would like to see how anyone can fake that when it goes up. A little bit of a factoid, I live right by NASA and SpaceX. I see these rockets go up at least once a month. I see it so frequently. And that is one thing that I have realized that not many other people think. They don't actually see these rockets go up. They don't think that they're even, real. But, one time, this one guy even argued with me that he didn't think that the Saturn V went to the moon and that, it just kind of stayed up there. How? You can't just tell me that the Saturn V went up and then it just disappeared. You can't do that to a several 100-ton vehicle. Several thousand ton, actually. Going up over 20,000 miles per hour. You can't do that. It doesn't just stay up there unless you put the thing into orbit. But it didn't need to go into orbit. Do you want to know why? It left the planet. And you could think, oh, it didn't leave the planet because the dome is there. No one has ever proven that a dome exists at all in any way. And that is one thing I would like them to do. If they are so certain that they can find the dome, why not build your own rocket? It is completely legal for you to do. Either that, or you can create some other kind of aviation thing. I don't care. Just find a way to get up there so you can actually finally prove yourself. And no fisheye lenses. I know that that's one thing that always grinds the gears of Space Deniers is a fisheye lens. I could actually provide a bunch of videos of weather balloons going up that don't have fisheye lenses. You can tell on the ground already there's no distortion. There's actually nothing. And then as you scroll through the video, it's all unedited, by the way, 4 hours of footage. Goes up, you see the curvature of the Earth. One person even tried to disprove the curvature of the Earth by sending me a video from a weather balloon saying no fisheye lens was used. I took a little ruler to the edge of the Earth in that video, and actually I found a little thing that was interesting. It did not curve like this the way you'd expect. It actually curved inward because they did use a lens. Last I checked, the Earth is not a torus. Here's the thing, you don't need to be a scientist to understand these things. I am in high school, as you can probably tell by how stupid I look. But that's the thing. I actually understand these concepts where these people who are over 30 still cannot comprehend the fact that space is a feasible thing that can't exist. In fact, you can't even mathematically prove it doesn't exist. Why do you think the speed of light can be used as a measurement in space? Because it works. If it didn't work, then modern physics wouldn't even exist. You couldn't be measuring things down at the quantum level because space is literally the thing that everything propagates in. It is what we are all layered on. It wouldn't work if it didn't exist. Take the cosmic background radiation, for example. It is a big old picture of microwaves that are from the very distant past of the universe when it was I don't remember how old it was, but it was pretty young. Oh yeah, no, I remember now. It was only a couple 100,000 years after the Big Bang started, and you'd think, wow, that is a long time. In universal terms, no, it's not. In the Big Bang Theory intro, that actually does a shockingly good job at explaining the entire universe as a whole. Anyway, it is very young in universal terms, but I'd like to ask, what exactly is that? If space is not a real thing and that it doesn't exist, I would like to know what exactly is the cosmic background radiation and how did it get there? Because obviously it's there, so you can actually detect it. So let me ask, where did that come from? Similar question, where do meteorites come from then, if that's the case? They fall out of the sky, you can see them happening. Do you think the government flies up and puts them there? It wouldn't be able to go that fast if that were the case. You can't launch a couple meter object at a couple miles per second. I mean, unless you have I think the US actually has one of the most powerful rail guns in the world, and even that cannot get to some of the astronomical, literally, speeds that some of these meteors get to. And that is one thing that I think that we can all be a little bit happy about, is that we know that those come from somewhere, but others that don't think space is real don't. Space is an incredible place of which we can learn so much from, so many different things and concepts that dwarfs even what's on our own planet, which is funny because we haven't exactly learned what's all on here yet either. It's what humanity does. It learns, it adapts, and it creates off information that it knows and finds. That is why space is such an incredible tool that we can use, because it can help develop physics and literally anything else that we would really need to be doing for future life later on the line. But that's the thing that I think is a bit funny, because for some reason, although we're in a planet that is orbiting in a giant cosmic void, and it's so small compared to everything else, we still have people that think that it doesn't exist. Us compared to the sheer size of the universe is immense, and I can't really even describe that fully. It's hard to even comprehend a number as big as 93 billion light years, which, by the way, that's not even the full thing. That's the observable universe that we can see. And, you know, that's one thing I think is pretty great. You don't know how big the real thing is. For all you know, it could be 1 trillion times that size. Nobody knows, because you can't detect that far. And don't even tell me that it's bigger than what the speed of light could do. 13.7 billion years old, that can only be how big it is, right? Light travels that far? No, shut up. You are sad, and I hate that. There is no speed limit for the expansion of space, actually. The thing is, if all space is expanding simultaneously, at least some of the open areas, rather, that have more concentrations of whatever dark matter is, I don't know what it is, do you? I doubt it. More concentrations of dark energy, dark matter, whatever makes space properly expand, is something that it can do. Space expands. It is empty. Well, rather, not empty. It has some stuff in it. But in terms of the people who don't think it exists, imagine that it's empty. Space being what it is, naturally is something that people don't understand. It is something that is far beyond what anybody could ever properly comprehend. As long as you at least somewhat know the subject about it, you can kind of get the general gist of what it is, but nobody, and I mean nobody, is ever going to fully understand the true scope of how big space is. I get the concept. I know that it is giant, but I don't even have the physical capacity of, like, in a brain to render that much space. There's only, like, what, a couple petabytes of information in a brain? I don't even think that is even close to a drop in an ocean compared to how much power you need to compute the entire universe as a whole. You know what? I take solace in that fact, knowing that even though I don't know some stuff, I do at least know the shape of the Earth, and that what is outside of the Earth is something that we can explore one day. Honestly, it's a pretty incredible feeling to think that space is so much larger than anything we could ever properly understand. It is something that is always intrigued me, and when I hear people say that the government is lying about it, that is when I go ballistic. It is honestly such a simple process of sending up a weather balloon or just an amateur rocket. Sure, you need to do work for both of them, but you can do it. It is a physically possible thing that people can and have done, and it already proves the curvature of the Earth and that space is there. It is something that exists, it is something that you can go into, and it is something that will be gone into several trillion times down the line of humanity. I can almost guarantee that one of the biggest accomplishments humanity will ever do is going to Mars, because once that happens, we will finally become an interplanetary civilization, which, if you tell me that it sounds like Star Wars, I swear you may be right, but that does not make you right. Yeah, there are other civilizations in Star Wars, but you know what? Later on down the line, that's humans. We may even make the Alcubierre drive, something that goes faster than light. Technically, not really. I mean, like, it goes faster than light, but not faster than light. Space expands behind, space contracts in front, you're in a little bubble of space. It's like riding a wave. Space bigger in back, space thinner in front, space big, push forward, you go faster than light. There is no speed limit for space. A little jaunt over to Mars could be faster in a spaceship than it would be calling someone on Mars from Earth. There is always a delay time when it takes to go light from one area to another in the solar system. That is one thing also that I've heard. People, for some reason, have tried to tell me that I think, like, they say that I think that there is a instant transmission between Earth and Mars because I think the rover landed there? I don't really understand what that even implies. No, there's no such thing as instant transmission anywhere. That just doesn't exist. That cannot be a physical thing that can happen because there's always going to be a delay no matter how small the distance. It's give or take 3 to 8 minutes on Mars. On the moon it is a couple seconds. So when people had to film the moon, like on the moon landing thing, yeah, when they had to film the lander leaving, they actually had to send the order for the camera to pan up a couple seconds before the actual lander left, because by the time the lander started moving, that is when the camera would have to pan up, which, you know, that's kind of how everything works. Light is fast, and it is incredibly fast, but it is not fast enough to get to those vast distances in such a short amount of time. If you were to turn on a flashlight, light will always move at a constant speed in a medium, and it will always move at a constant speed in that medium. In space, in a vacuum, it is always at the constant speed of over 299 million meters per second, and it is only slightly less in air because it has to go through something to get to its destination. That is the problem that I don't understand with people. You can make light wrap around the Earth over 7 times in a second with how fast it moves. And the moon, on the other hand, is way past that 7, mark. It is over that limit. So it takes more than a second for the information to get there. Amplify that over distances in the solar system, and you do not have any quick amount of time for that light to go through. Why do you think it takes so long to come in contact with Voyager 1, which is several billion miles out by now? It is so far away. I'm pretty sure it passed Neptune already. Do you have any idea how far away that is? It blows my mind that you can even come in contact with something that far away. It is baffling that someone has actually even thought that that is something that they could do, and then they did it. Like, they created a probe that has left the solar system for the most part, and it will keep going for thousands of years before it even comes in contact with a singular other celestial object outside the solar system. Once that thing leaves the Oort cloud with everything out there, it is gone. It is not coming back, and that will be gone. I can't even tell you how long. I think it's got enough nuclear fuel on board to last for like a couple more years. I have no idea, but I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter. People are going to be making more. So as a little concluding bit, what I'm going to say is I'm going to be posting this video everywhere. I normally don't do that, but I'm going to be sending it to every single flat earth, space denying community channel that I can find, and I'm going to actually physically make sure, I know I've said physically a lot, did you notice that? I've said that a lot in this video. I'm taking down the entire space denying community, whether anyone thinks I can or can't. Not the part that's accepting or is loving to people. That is awesome. I love when a community does that. Look, you see that back there? What is that? What's that? That's a fursuit. Why are you furries accepting people? Why do you think I am one? That part about a community I absolutely love and cherish. It is great to have people that like each other and come together for a certain cause. It is just nice. It is nice when people enjoy artwork and are creative and are kind to people. And that is something that's good about the Flat Earth community as far as I've seen. The conventions, people get together, people have fun, they make friends. That is awesome. The only problem I have with it is the fact that they think the Earth is flat when we've known for thousands of years that it's not. It seems like a downright insult to science when you try to prove something that has already been proven over thousands of years ago. It is not hard to prove the roundness of the Earth or the fact that space is a real tangible place. But you know what? That is why I am here. Any single person that tries to comment on this video, I will respond to. I will make sure that I give a detailed explanation as to anything you could give me. And if I can't explain it, I'm not afraid to say I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I already said in this video, I'm in high school. I only know what I know because I've seen it over a period of like 15 years. You don't need a PhD or a doctorate or any other kind of extreme degree to know the simplicity of how the planet is shaped. That's what I don't get. Just because it's taught in school doesn't mean it's wrong. It's not indoctrination, it is just fact. Science evolves over time. That is how science operates, and that's how it will continue to operate for as long as this time exists, really. It is refined, it is tweaked ever so slightly, just to make it so that it is the most accurate to real life as physically possible. People thought that with the Michelson-Morley experiment, they tried to prove the aether existed because they thought that light and the Earth would have something that they needed to travel through. No, No, that's what space is, and you don't need an aether. That's why the experiment failed, because the aether doesn't exist. Which it wouldn't matter anyway, because space is real. And I know that I am the one who sounds condescending now, and that I sound like I know what I'm talking about. And honestly, you know what? I sort of do. I kind of know what I'm talking about, because I've studied it for years. And I'm sorry to sound rude, but when you try to tell me that I'm stupid and wrong because I have a different idea of the world than you, that is correct for that matter, that is when I just lose all ideals of just, being nice. So I hope you enjoyed the little passive-aggressive little thing there, because I'll keep making them. I don't care what I have to do. I just want people to start realizing what the planet actually is. It's not a conspiracy. I don't know why people keep thinking the government's lied to them. How on earth would you even think that would happen? You have countries that hate each other. You have people that hate each other, cultures that don't mix in any way, shape, or form, and yet for some reason their space programs and their governments can hide the fact that the Earth is flat without even one person slipping up. It is the more logical approach to think that when you have an explanation for something in science, that would make a little bit more sense than thinking that the entire planet is run by lizards who think that the Earth is actually some sort of weird 5-dimensional 8-sided creature that doesn't actually exist in the real world. I know I just spat out a bunch of random words, but that's kind of what this entire idea of space not being real is at this point. It's just a bunch of random ideas thrown together that people think is right. So I will be spreading this video around every flat earth and space denying channel I can find. I've already said that, and I know that you've already heard. But that's the thing. If you give me a claim in the comments of anything here, and then you respond to me, I will absolutely give a full-fledged, good old-fashioned response for you. I'll give you your evidence. I'll give you what you need. And if I can't, then as said, I'm not afraid to admit I don't know. That is one thing that I've noticed about the space denying community, is that they refuse to even think that for a moment they are wrong about anything. I digress. The reason that I say this is because if you want a person, or any person in general, to be open-minded about something, then you yourself have to be open-minded too.